Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commander Alastair Cooper. We warmly welcome Mr. Alex McGowan from the Naval Association of Australia, ACT section. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. In particular, we warmly welcome Major Peter Crosby, Vice President, Richmond RSL. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From Victoria, Wilmot Park Primary School, Craigieburn, Shepparton East Primary School, and Geelong Grammar School, Corio. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Children, please sit. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to able-bodied driver Robert Armstrong. Robert Armstrong was born in Melbourne on the 8th of May 1881 to Robert and Bessie Armstrong. Robert attended Burnley State School and trained as a painter. He became a seaman with the Adelaide Steamship Company and served 15 years working on ships. Armstrong enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in early 1915. With his maritime skills, he joined the first Royal Australian Naval bridging train. After brief training in Australia, he sailed from Melbourne in June 1915 on the transport ship Port Macquarie. He was then stationed on the Greek island of Lemnos, supporting the bridging train on Gallipoli. The bridging train carried out a wide variety of tasks. The men built and maintained piers and pontoon bridges, helped bring supplies ashore, controlled the supply of fresh water to frontline troops, built a light railway, and carried out repairs on Gallipoli. With the failure of the Dardanelles campaign, Allied troops began evacuating in December. Most of the bridging train were evacuated by mid-December, but about 50 men stayed behind to dismantle the pontoon bridges used to get the troops onto the boats. These men left Gallipoli at the end of the month and were the last Australians to leave the peninsula. The bridging team returned to Egypt, where they were stationed at Kubri on the Suez Canal. Armstrong was promoted to the rank of driver and so was in control of horse teams used to move heavy equipment. One of the unit's main roles in Egypt was operating pontoon bridges, allowing horses, troops and equipment to cross the canal. The pontoons were swung aside twice daily to allow shipping through. Armstrong's comrades in the bridging team remember him celebrating Christmas with them in 1916. After dinner that night, he set off to walk along the Suez Canal back to camp. That was the last time they saw him alive. His body was found in the canal on the 1st of January 1917. A court of inquiry found that it was most likely he had fallen into the canal and drowned on the night of the 25th of December 1916. He was 35 years old. Robert Armstrong was buried in the Suez War Memorial Cemetery in Egypt, one of more than 500 Commonwealth First World War soldiers buried there. Armstrong's three brothers also served in the AIF. Corporal Thomas Armstrong served on the Western Front and returned to Australia in 1919. Private James Armstrong enlisted in 1914, but suffered from ongoing injuries at the training camps in Egypt and returned to Australia in 1916. Private Abel Armstrong was badly wounded on Gallipoli and returned to Australia in 1916. Able-bodied driver Robert Armstrong is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, along amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember able-bodied driver Robert Armstrong, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They have no grave but the cruel sea, no flowers lay at their head. A rusting hulk is their tombstone, fast on the ocean bed. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.